there was this consensus where you could go to a Catholic dinner party and you'd see authors from, different, you'd go to a conference, circles have been in for the past 10 plus years, and everybody got along. You could mingle in a room, and there was different emphases, and there's charismatics, and there's a few trads, and but maybe someone was a little bit more into social justice or teaching, whatever. But there was no clause out, and it seems now that is no longer the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've written books for Our Sunday Visitor, which is a very standard kind of mainline Catholic publishing house, also for Catholic Answers, which is still mainline, but a little more hardcore than you would call Our Sunday Visitor. And when I would go to conferences, speaking engagements, what have you, you're right. It was, we knew there was division in the church, for the past 50 years, 60 years, but it was mostly between the progressives and this loose federation of traditionalists and conservatives.
Yeah. A loose federation. I like that. I invited on this whole Dare We Hope thing with Balthazar and all that with Bishop Barron. I said, hey, let's have a friendly debate, a discussion. No one's going to get mad. No one's going to call names. Let's talk about scripture by scripture, father by father, go through the Balthazarian thesis. Let's do it. I put an invite out to Bishop Barron, and he deleted it. They're all talking about dialogue and debate. And then when we say, okay, well, let's do it, nothing. They delete our messages. They call us schismatic. You're not worthy of a platform.
And that's exactly, that happened to me on Twitter last week when Dawn Eden Goldstein, she had been saying some pretty outlandish things about some friends of mine. And I said to her, listen, let's have a public debate about this. Twitter's not the place that we can have a serious discussion of things. And I offer, because we're both Catholic Answers authors, I said, why don't we have Catholic Answers moderate it? Or anybody. I didn't care who moderated it, to be honest. Because I just thought it would be helpful for Catholics if we had a discussion. I thought a topic such as the role of the papacy in the life of a Catholic would be a good one. Like, what is our duty towards the Pope? And how should we look at his pronouncements on an airplane or even in a document that he writes? And so she responded by basically saying, well, since you reject Vatican II as invalid, until you stop doing that, I'm not going to talk to you. I said, well, I don't. I didn't know what she was talking about. I was like, I don't think Vatican II is invalid. I think it's a totally valid ecumenical council of the church. And so she said, well, you criticized it a couple weeks ago, and so that means you think it's invalid. I'm like, what? What does that mean? And I said, Pope Benedict criticized Vatican II. Does that mean he thinks it's invalid? She's like, well, no, Pope Benedict criticized it in a different way than you are. So it's okay for him, but not for you. And I just realized, and she never wanted to give a debate. And she just said, no, I don't think that'd be helpful. Okay, fine. I'm not like saying people are required to say yes to every request for a debate. But don't try to hide it behind this. I'm not going to give you a platform because you're so extreme. If he thinks somebody like you has basically fallen away from the true faith, which is kind of what he's saying, and you have this huge following, at least by Catholic standards, then I would, if I'm the bishop, I'm like, I need to address that. I need to not just wave it away and say, oh, it's some extreme thought, because all that does is get people more, it draws the battle lines more clearly, and it makes people not willing to even discuss. So it makes people who think that you have a good point, they really start to turn against Bishop Barron. And we don't want people turning against the bishop of the Catholic Church, especially one like Bishop Barron, who does good work and has a lot of things he's done outreach, good for the church. Good outreach, stuff like that.
Platform,
huge platform. I know he's brought many people to a deeper understanding of Catholicism and Christ, and I think that's great. And so we don't want people treating him people treating him frankly as he's treating you. But we're willing to say things like, von Balthazar's teaching has had dire consequences to the salvation of souls. And if we can't say that, if we're just like, no, that's an extreme statement even to think.
Right. Or go check out my FAQ.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, I think it would be, and that's why I think it's sad, these divisions, and they are. I do, and honestly, okay, now we're going to get to the hard part. Is I do think a lot of them can be laid at the feet of Pope Francis. And if you look at how he treated, for example, the Dubia cardinals, that
This is where I wanted to go.
it's a passive aggressive thing. You don't answer, but then you backhandedly attack and demonize and make as extreme people like that. So you're right. When people like Don and even Bishop Barron, when they do that to people like us, they're following the lead of Pope Francis.
And they're excited about that. They
Right.
would be eager, I think, to remind us. I mean,
Yes.
Barron just came out and he said to someone who said, "Hey, did you see Vigano mention Marshall's book?" To Barron, like you can't just write it off. That's kind of a
Right.
big deal, especially when Barron said Vigano is trustworthy. And then Bishop Barron said, "Come on, friend, did you read his book? Quote, I have zero interest in giving him any sort of platform." End quote. The thing that bothers me is, you see on Facebook, on Google, YouTube, Twitter, the deplatforming of certain voices.
Absolutely.
And they're kind of taking this started under Barack Obama, and they're taking these cues, and they're always the first one to say, "Well, in the Catholic Church, there is no left and right."
Right.
Those are political terms. But it seems that in the same circles, they're the ones who are like, deplatform him. He's not worthy of a platform. Don't talk to him. No debate, no discussion. They're schismatics. They're racist. They're anti-Semites.
Right.
And they're using the political discourse and the political methods to silence. And, we always talk about Saul Alinsky in America, but very few have actually read him. And I've been studying him and reading him a little bit. And he has his rules for radicals.
Right.
The 13th rule of Saul Alinsky, I think, applies to this situation. Now, for those that don't know, Saul Alinsky was a communist infiltrator. He worked out of Chicago. He worked with the Catholic Church. He worked with Protestants. He worked with everybody. He realized that communist revolutions weren't going to happen with blood in the street, but through a very careful persuasion of people, especially through powerful people like cardinals, bishops, pastors, politicians, mayors. So Saul Alinsky has these rules for radicals, and the 13th rule is pick a target. This is, quote, pick a target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Notice he doesn't say engage it, debate, discuss. The left never does this. If you ever get into a true discussion over, say, abortion, they are never going to have a discussion about science with you.
Right.
What are they going to do? Pick a target, freeze it, personalize it, polarize it.
Right. And that's, in a way,
and that's exactly what they've done to you and to me and to others. Is
right.
They pick us, freeze us, personalize it, polarize it, dismissed, gone. We're not going to engage with you. You don't deserve a platform.
The Bishop Barron and you is a great example, because here we have a situation in which, by anybody who has even the slightest knowledge of history, knows that your position on the salvation of souls and Dare We Hope and all that is
the traditional one,
is the one that's been held for a long time. Yeah. We'll just say that. Right. And Bishop Barron's is the new one. Now, right. Bishop Barron can argue it's a legitimate development. And I'm not saying he can't argue that. But the fact that you're simply arguing what has been held for 2,000 years, and that has been personalized and demonized and turned into an extreme position, that's what's crazy.